President Bola Tinubu assures Nigeria will defeat terrorism despite current security challenges. And the country says Nigeria engaging foreign partners diplomatically. It's 48 hours to the D-Day when Anambra residents will head to the polls and determine who leads the state in the next 4 years. INEC, police, and CSOs fine-tune preparations ahead of that big day. Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial net center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Ozongo, sitting in for Sheun Okinbaloye, who took the day off. And of course, we're going to be looking at what's playing out in the polity. A lot has been happening. One of the ongoing conversations has to do with whether or not the United States will invade the country, given the threat or the warning, if you will, by President Donald Trump. And there have been all kinds of commentary across board over the statements around alleged Christian genocide, for and against, depending on who you're speaking to. But it appears one thing is sure: we have a security situation on our hands in the country, and something has to be done to change the trend and literally make Nigerians feel safer in the long run. And it is very clear in the Constitution, the primary responsibility of government is for the protection of the citizens and their welfare. So that is why this is generating a lot of interest. Now the attention of the world is on Nigeria. No one is sure what is coming, but let's tell you what the president is actually doing. He's not spoken for a while, but now his pledge, his administration has resolved to deepen global engagement and intensify the fight against terrorism and criminality. The president spoke shortly after an economic briefing by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun, who reported during the Federal Executive Council meeting on Thursday that the administration reform agenda continues to stimulate investor confidence and deliver notable economic gains. According to the president, the government remains firmly committed to moving the country forward despite prevailing political and security pressure. Let's take a listen to the president.
The most important thing is the fact that despite the political headwind and the fear of our people, we continue to engage with our partners. The sources of the 2.3 billion bond, subscription, oversubscribed, is the most at this stage. So the task ahead is immense. We are engaging the world diplomatically, and we assure all of you that we will, defeat terrorism in this country. The task ahead is immense, but it's our resolve to move forward with unity and purpose, guided by renewed hope agenda to build a prosperous, inclusive, and resilient Nigeria. Thank you very much.
President Bola Tinubu giving those reassuring words that this is going to be resolved one way or the other. Diplomatic engagement already in place, as a matter of fact, assuring that, look, it's a matter of time. Terrorism will be defeated. So it's a question of a waiting game as to how that will come true. But that is literally everybody's expectation of the president and the administration to protect the people. So we'll hold him to it and hope that this perhaps blows over. But the lives of the people in the hinterland, not for those of us in the city primarily, it's not as bad as it is in those hinterlands where people are slaughtered and killed. So whether it's Christian or Muslim, the most important thing is that the Nigerian lives matter, and it must be protected by all means and every measure necessary. I think By the way, we can agree on that, even though we disagree on a couple of other things. But that was not all the president did today. He has sworn in two newly appointed ministers, Dr. Bernard Mohamed Doro and Mr. Kingsley Tochukwude, at a brief ceremony inside the council chambers today in Abuja. The swearing-in took place just before the commencement of the Federal Executive Council meeting presided over by the president. Mr. Doro is a pharmacist, a lawyer from Plateau State, fills the ministerial vacancy created by the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Professor Nentawa Yawata, who is now the national chairman of the ruling All Progressives Congress. Mr. Ode, on the other hand, is a senior advocate of Nigeria from Enugu State, who is filling the vacancy created by the resignation of the former Minister of Science, Innovation and Technology, Uche Naji, who resigned following allegations of certificate forgery. Let's now head to what's happening in Anambra State. As I said at the very beginning, 48 hours is what is left. So all of the political parties, about 16 of them, today is the last day for them to campaign and go around all the 21 local government areas, the senatorial district and the federal constituency and the state constituencies, to make sure they tell the people what they will do if they are elected. So in just a few hours from now, anybody who does anything besides just waiting will be committing, will be breaching the law. But let's tell you that the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has reaffirmed readiness for Saturday's election. They are the electoral umpire. The Resident Electoral Commissioner, Queen Agu, gave the assurance in Oka while receiving sensitive election materials from the central bank. She noted that the materials will be promptly distributed to all local government areas to ensure seamless deployment before the polls begin on Saturday. Now, she's not the only one. There are so many stakeholders when it comes to elections. And one of those stakeholders is the security agency. The police, they are speaking already, so they said there is adequate, they are confident of adequate security being put in place for the governorship election. The Commissioner of Police in charge of the election, Abayomi Shongule, gave the assurance while fielding questions from journalists this morning, that's earlier today.
Going to be election in all the 21 local government areas in Anambra State come Saturday, 8th of November, and there's going to be voting in all the polling units in Anambra State come Saturday, except 2 polling units, and this is as a result of 0 registered voter. No person has registered to vote in those 2 polling units. Otherwise, the election will go ahead in all locations as expected on Saturday. And everything that is needed to be put in place to ensure that this happens in terms of security and logistics has been put in place. And part of meeting the timeline is what we are witnessing here today, which is the commencement of the distribution of electoral materials from the central bank Oka to all the local government areas in the state. And this will continue from the local government areas to the super racks and then to the rack. And by very early Saturday morning, all these electoral materials would arrive at the various polling stations across the state. Security has been put in place both on land and on the waterways, as well as the air patrol.
Also, the police officer in charge of the elections giving assurances to citizens. So I'm sure a lot of people in Anambra are literally waiting for the moment when they will have to make the decision whether or not to continue with Chukwuma Soludo or get someone else to do the job. It's as simple as that. But there are so many things in between all of that, in terms of logistics, in terms of movement of materials, in terms of security. There are several layers. Observers across board are also on ground to make sure that they check through that there is integrity, transparency, and everything that is expected in terms of a credible, fair, free election happens on Saturday in Anambra State. And Anambra is going to be a big focus tonight on the program. But let's tell you other political stories in our political roundup.
With less than 48 hours to the Anambra State Governorship election, civil society organization Yaga Africa is calling on the Independent National Electoral Commission INEC to ensure a free, fair and credible poll. The group believes transparency and integrity in the exercise will strengthen democracy and public confidence in the electoral system. Addressing journalists in Oka, the state capital, Yaga head of the 2025 Anambra State Election Mission, Dr. Asmao Mekudi, appealed to INEC to ensure early distribution of materials across various polling units, just as they ask security agencies to ensure the safety of voters. Some members of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, have staged a protest to the embassies of the United States and the European Union in Abuja, asking the international community to intervene and protect Nigeria's democracy. The protesters displayed placards asking the international community to save Nigeria's democracy, stop the alleged intimidation by the ruling party, and help save the country from falling into a one-party state. The group submitted their protest letters to the United States and European Union embassies in Abuja, while also petitioning the Chief Justice of the Federation to help save the judiciary. And finally, the governor of Taraba State, Agbu Kaifa, says he will soon make public his position on whether or not he will defect to the All Progressives Congress APC from the People's Democratic Party PDP. The governor explained this while meeting with some key political stakeholders from both the APC and the PDP, where he revealed that his speculations will be laid to rest next week.
I was just literally, welcome back, by the way, I was just literally smiling through that very last story from Taraba State because it looks like the season of defection is really literally not over. So the next election is going to be quite interesting as to what the opposition will look like against the ruling party, as well as the people, you and I, in between all of this. But I did say that Anambra is going to be the big chunk of the conversation tonight, and rightly so, because Anambra election is almost like a national election in a sense because of the competition that is involved in terms of the elections generally. So just a quick rundown of, let's say, 21 local government areas in 326 wards is where this election will be happening. And we understand that 2,800 plus 2 million, I should say, 800,000, let me put the right figure, 2,802,790 total number of registered voters have been registered in Anambra State for this particular election. We understand also 1.8 million people have collected their PVCs, which makes it roughly over 60% of the total number. Police deployments, 45,000. That's quite massive. NSCDC, 10,000. The buses that will be used for logistics by INEC are about 2,000 plus. And we have boats that will be going to the riverine areas, about 83 of them. But let's bring in our first guest for tonight on the program. And that has to do with, let's bring in, well, the reason I'm kind of excited because most of the time people say, okay, we really do not have females on the program. But this time, we're bringing a woman who is also on the ballot as far as Saturday's election is concerned. She's the governorship candidate of the AAC in Anambra State, Chioma Ifemeludike. She joins us virtually from Onitsha. Chioma, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
You don't look tired and worn out at all. You look well rested and ready for the game because a lot of the candidates, if you go speak to them now, they'll tell you, you know, we have to touch base with every part of the state to make sure that we'll get as many votes as possible. Let me start with a generic one. How's the campaign been for you so far? Have you been campaigning?
Well, I'm actually exhausted. I'm actually not worn out, but yes, we've put in a lot of work. We've put in a lot of resources for the past months, and yes, we are ready. At this point, we're waiting for what November 8th is going to be like, or what decision in the Anambra are going to make.
I'm going to layer the conversation with you in phases. So let me begin with the political conversation first. And the truth is that there are two things I want to find out from you. So let me begin with the very first one. Do you think you're popular enough to give any candidate, especially the incumbent, a run for his money by any stretch of imagination, by your own assessment?
Oh, well, from beginning, it was a question. That question, came to mind. But then I believe that it wasn't a question of popularity, it was a question of purpose, of intent, and of my plans, my passion to come into the political space of Anambra State and rescue my people. So with such intention, and popularity was not, because I understood that it wasn't an issue of who was more popular, but who has a message that resonates and will stand the test of time. So for me, it wasn't about popularity, and I don't think this is about popularity. It's about the intention the leader has for his or her people. Yeah, so, and from the beginning, it didn't seem like I was popular enough, but now I can categorically say that for as much as, what it should be, people have come to understand the message I'm bringing to the table. And yes, all the forces joined together has put me in the very faces of the relevant people, from the candidates, the masses, and the media.
So I understand you're an actress. So does the being an actress or in the creative sector, has it helped in any way or shape or form?
Oh, I've had some of my colleagues, try to support me, even though for so many, they probably don't understand the connection. The creative industry is entirely different from politics, only that for some of us, someone like me, who have had a background in politics and governance, whether it's in my study or it is in my activities for over a decade now, I've been actively participating, and that's rare. So it seems like when it's not like I'm stepping out of my career to do this or to go into this road path. I've been here, and some of my colleagues know. They probably don't understand it. They probably don't know how to connect to it. But a few of them have been helpful, have been supporting in their own various ways.
The reason I'm asking, I said I'm going to layer the conversation. So just walk with me for a moment. Let me stay with the politics, and I'll come to the programs you have for the people of Anambra State. I like to work with trends and data. And from just literally thinking back all the way to 1999, whether at state levels or national level, people in the creative sector have really not done well when they try to vie for elective office. I mean, just a microcosm, literally, have been able to succeed. Does that bother you?
It doesn't really. I don't think it's something that should bother anyone. Like I said, the creative industry kind of stands on its own as an institution, different from politics. So sometimes the problem is that the creatives kind of find an opportunity and they find themselves, doing politics suddenly. And then you don't see the connect. The people can't connect, their popularity and their political careers, because there's been no, relationship between them and the people politically. So I think that has, somehow made it look like creatives have not really succeeded in politics. And I think it's bringing to our attention why we should, the creative industry should somehow connect with politics. But for someone like me, even though it hasn't been proper politics or vying for a position, but I have always been in the corridor of activism, trying to join civil rights organizations, calling government to do the right thing, mounting pressure through protests, through any form of advocacies. I've been very active, yes. So But yeah, I think I agree that somehow the creative industry has not connected properly with the politics or the political institutions.
There's a big elephant in the room. Before I leave the politics and come to your program, which I know you're you are ready to talk about, because today is the last day you can actually say all of those. The next thing is just a waiting game. And that has to do with the war chest. War chest, financial muscle, is a critical success factor, whether rightly or wrongly, in Nigerian politics. You're an actress, Anambra, city or state of billionaires and millionaires. A lot of money play the game as it is. Talk to us about how you want to stand up to that level of war chest with an incumbent.
Oh yeah, for us it wasn't. I didn't personally believe that it was more about the money, because if it was about the money and comparing ourselves with the incumbent or any of this money bags, we'll probably not have been in the ballots or even stepped into the ring. But it goes beyond money, and there's a place to correct these things. It mustn't always mean that it has to be the money bags, because then there's a question of what is the source of their money, and that has been a bane of the political growth or development of our society, especially in the Southeast, where people look up to money bags to come and do what they have to do, use their money to buy up positions and then eventually become leaders. So when people start crying out or clamoring for good leadership and how things are not good, but then you look at the trajectory and how they've been making it look like you need to have so much money. I don't think money is the major needs or requirements. I think what you need is a leader that has the right plans, the right blueprint, and has the conscience to deliver good leadership. Because you don't expect the leader to bring money to the field. You bring the leader because the resources are available. We just need someone who can manage these resources and channel them in the right sectors to be able to deliver good leadership. The conducive environment, all the social amenities in our communities. That's what we need. But in the other way around here, we tend to look for a money bag who will pay us for our conscience when they are, when they are rich enough to buy our votes and then become leaders. We go round again and start crying. So it's a vicious circle, and I wish to see it end. And that was why I stepped in, because I understood that it wasn't my money which was going to speak. It was my courage. It was my passion, and it was, my innovative plans from the Anambra State that will eventually stand the test of time, and posterity will judge us all. Yeah.
I think you articulate your thoughts quite well. So let's get to it. And it just crossed my mind now that Anambra holds a place in history as well, in a couple of things. I think that's where this off-cycle election stuff happened. That is where we had a governor that was a governor for less than a month, about 14, 15 days or so. That is also where we had the first female governor when her principal was impeached. So there's a lot of firsts when it comes to Anambra. But let's talk about your program, which is the biggest of all the conversation. And I always like to start with, what is it that Chukwuma Soludo, the current governor, he's doing that you feel that he's not doing enough? So this is my own plan. I think I have a better program and plan for the people of Anambra. So you guys call it Ndi Anambra.
Ndi Anambra, yes. Yeah, so for me, there's so much to be done in Anambra State, and we haven't seen it under the Professor Charles Soludo's leadership. And mostly for me, especially in security, there were so many deaths. I think those deaths could have been averted. And when human lives are concerned, the primary thing the government should provide for the people with all the allocations and all the monies they, canvass from different areas, from IGR and all of that. We expect that people's lives should matter, that the government should value lives and put all the necessary mechanisms to provide security to the people. And then there are too many deaths that were recorded, people shot in broad daylight, people kidnapped, ransom paid, and they were still killed body dumped on the roads. A young boy, Emmanuel Chinyere, which made me go on a protest. The government house was slaughtered like an animal. I mean, we can just sit back and watch things like this happen in this 21st century. Are we waiting for the U.S. to come and save Anambra State? I mean, it doesn't make any sense that, for instance, Chinyere was adopted for 4 days, held in the, with his captors, with his sisters. And then after 4 days, someone came in, some vigilante group men came in with the boy's family, were able to accost one of the kidnappers, and he later escaped with handcuffs and came back and slaughtered this boy. This boy was a teen, so it doesn't make any sense. And under my, leadership as governor of Anambra State, I intend to, adopt the vigilante group or network, because I think the vigilante network or framework is a very important one, because it almost serves or it replicates a state police approach, because this setup is under the control of the state government. So I'm going to set up this vigilante network, and it will be set up in the...
cut into your thought. My apologies, because you mentioned vigilante. I think there's Agune Chamber. I think that's the name of the vigilante group. So if you're talking about what you want to do,
I'm going to scrap it because it's not effective. I'm going to scrap it. They weren't effective at the time that they had their chance. They weren't adequate. And for me, some of the things I'm going to mention is why this security agency was not effective and what I'm going to do differently. First of all, when I'm going to adopt a framework as a vigilante network to intervene in security matters in communities, I'm going to make sure I recruit them from the local communities where they come from, because I can't bring foreigners in a community where they're not used to oversee. So we're going to have it registered and recognized under the government and the people. We're going to make sure that these vigilante groups are trained, because training for us makes a difference. For instance, when you want to compare the training of the military officer and the police officer, you can tell there are differences. This is where training comes in. If you don't adequately train your recruits and then you push them out on the streets, how then do you expect they can know the difference between interfacing with civilians and criminals? And then you see the cases of assault, of extortion, the same situation we're trying to curb. It doesn't make any sense. And then again, we're going to be equipping them. And equipping them now is not handing them AK-45s, because it doesn't make sense that we have to be scared of people who are supposed to be, making us feel safe. So when you hand these people guns and then you lose them out on, to the community people without training, without trying to, give them the needed orientation that is standardized. I mean, it's just, you're waiting for the doom of that setup. So we're going to train them and equip them. The equipment they'll be needing, considering the locality that they'll be overseeing, will be more of information gathering gadgets, intelligence gathering gadgets. These are the things we're going to be equipping this security with. And then, of course, pay them. We're going to make sure that their wages are good enough.
Let me butt in for a moment, if you will, because of time, so that we can cover as many grounds as the time allows us. And that has to do with the economy. And I'd like to posit it around, for instance, in Nnewi. I don't know the state of infrastructure in Nnewi, but Nnewi is always looked at by persons who don't live in Anambra as one of Nigeria's quote-unquote China. Industrialization is key to be able to drive any economy, and that industrialization has to come from, of course, the background has to do with power. So talk to us about, do you have an aggressive industrialization plan for Anambra, given its potential? And if you do, how do you want to approach it? Remember that there's also the issue of paucity of funds. A lot of states, including Anambra, depend on federal allocation. According to budget numbers in 2023 from their release of 2024 as against 2023, Anambra still depended on FACT to the tune of about 71 or 70%. So walk us through how you intend to achieve some level of economic transformation that will be different from what we have seen so far.
Okay, yes. So I don't think funds are the issues here. I think the major issues here are the management of it and prioritizing, what sectors need to be prioritized. So, but speaking to the things you mentioned, for instance, you talked about Nnewi infrastructurally. And people assume or say Nnewi is a China. And it's good to, give all those accolades and names, to Anambra State or to Nnewi. But for me, I don't think Nnewi has the environmental face to attract investors who would, give it that capacity to look like an industrial city. I don't think Nnewi has gotten to the point to be called an industrial city. Because when you come to Nnewi and you look at even the road networks, the road conditions, can they bring an investor and keep them? I don't think so, because the congestion in Nnewi alone would discourage even a local. I am from Anambra, and I don't think I can live in Nnewi. And this is all respect. I mean, I give my respect to Nnewi. I cut my cap to them. They are great business people. They are very, loving people. I've lived with them. And I think I see all the potentials in Nnewi. But I think infrastructurally, and truly respect to the heavyweights in the Nnewi, but I think more has to be done in terms of expansion of the roads. You can't talk about infrastructure, commerce or trade without infrastructure, basically roads. Because if people can't access the roads to as little as buy stuff at the market, just those kind of little,
That's why I'm telling you
economic
to tell us
activity.
your plan of what you will do differently, given all of the things you've identified.
That's what, if you pay attention, you could hear the details I'm giving to what the things I'm going to do, which is infrastructurally to measure into road building and expanding the roads to give Nnewi a facelift that can enable, because, for instance, during the summer, why do people travel? They travel so they can have a conducive environment where they can share memories with their families and loved ones. So how then do you expect people to come to a city or a town that doesn't suit the kind of environment they want to be in? So I'm going to give Nnewi an environmental facelift that would enable us to allow investors come by major road constructions, major road expansions, building flyovers, connecting the busy axis and making sure that there are no congestions or traffics that would reduce the economic activity in environments or towns like Nnewi. So infrastructure is priority for us.
Maybe just hold that thought for a moment. I want to take a quick break. When I come back, just to get your landing thoughts. So we'll be back in just a moment. Stay with us. Welcome back. My guests, the governorship candidate of the AAC in Saturday's governorship election in Anambra State, Chioma Ifemeludike. She joins us from Onitsha. Chioma, we just have like a minute, if you can do this for us in just 1 minute. And that question is, are you confident of a free, fair, credible election on Saturday?
I think I've said this too many times, but confidence, I can't say about that. I can't say confidence. But like I always say, it's time for the institutions to prove themselves, from INEC to the security agencies. The stage is set again, and history is about to happen. So it's time for us to see, how much of integrity these institutions have got to do the right thing and deliver the mandates of the people of Anambra State. Yes, their rights to vote and their votes to count.
Fantastic. A great way to land your thoughts. We wish you the very best. Chioma Ifemeludike, AAC governorship candidate in the Anambra State governorship election taking place on Saturday. Good luck.
Thank you.
Let's switch gears immediately. We're still in Anambra State. This time we've been joined by Samson Itoto, who is the executive director of Yaga Africa. They are on ground, and they've been following progress. Of course, Yaga does all of the pre-election, election, and post-election analytics. And Samson, Mr. Samson, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me. Good evening, Geoffrey.
So let's begin with your initial assessment of what you've seen so far. I know that Yaga has released some documents, perhaps in collaboration with other observers and civil society organizations that are already in Anambra State, as to what is expected and what you're seeing already. We've seen visuals from the central bank and getting ready for distribution of sensitive materials. But just give us your assessment of what you've seen and perhaps heard.
Well, thanks, Geoffrey, and once again, greetings from Oka. Today, we issued our first statement on these elections, and that's the pre-election statement. And it contains some of the observations that we have made regarding specific issues on these elections. And I would highlight just a few. But before then, to mention that Yaga Africa is part of the Election Observation Hub, where we have 7 other organizations supported by the EU delegation in Nigeria who are observing different components of the elections. We are deployed our traditional parallel vote tabulation for this election. And one of the things and the commitment we continue to make is that based on our sample size, if the official results declared by INEC have been altered or manipulated, the PVT can detect it like we've done for previous elections. But there are several issues that we've highlighted. The first point that is worthy of note is that INEC appears sufficiently prepared for the elections. We were in the CBN this afternoon at about 1 or 2 p.m. To observe the deployment of the materials, the ballot papers and the result sheets. They were orderly and they were well organized in distributing those materials. The party agents were there and they insisted that the REC should sign on all the result sheets, and the REC was signing on all the result sheets to authenticate those results. The materials have left CBN, so we expect that they will get to the 21 local governments, and by tomorrow they will be deployed to the racks. Because, Geoffrey, as you know, one particular feature of Anambra elections is that it's always plagued with logistical challenges. From 2013, 2017, 2021, INEC never recorded commencement in 50% of polling units at 8:30. So with the assurances that the chairman has given, we hope that INEC will break the jinx, in this election, because there is the efficiency test that INEC is undergoing in this election. And that's to ensure that polling units open early enough for voters, to cast their vote. I think the second bigger issue relates to insecurity in some of the what you call hotspots around Ihala local governments, all in Agwata and some of the riverine areas, ensuring that there is adequate deployment of security. Because if the security agencies don't provide security for INEC officials and the materials, it will be very difficult for INEC to deploy. So for those areas where you have gunboats, you have all sorts of machinery that have been deployed to support the election process, we hope that the security agencies will cooperate with INEC and provide the necessary security. But so far, so good. Everything seems peaceful in the state, and I think the state is primed for voting. We hope that they record high turnout in this election, because in 2021, they only recorded 20.1%, 10.21% turnout, which is abysmally low. But I think everything has been put in place to encourage voters to show up to cast their vote.
That's why I wanted to even go in terms of my question. I know that Demli North and Oka South, they carry the biggest chunks in terms of registered voters from the data available provided by INEC. What do you expect in terms of voter turnout? Because even for general elections, we've seen how a lot of people collect these PVCs, and then when it's election day, for multiplicity of reasons, people don't show up to vote, and materials are wasted, and all kinds of things happen in the first place. Some people have said, oh, sometimes low voter turnout benefits set A as against set B. So you've been in the city and you've seen what is going on. Do you expect a fair voter turnout, and what will be fair by your own assessment or by this organization's assessment?
Quite frankly, if you look at Yaga Africa's statement, I don't have good news for you. We have projected a turnout that will be lower than 20% because, of the reactions from voters in the state. And really, I think that the people of Anambra really have an opportunity to demonstrate their faith in democracy. This election is an opportunity for you to elect a leader. The institutions involved have demonstrated that they are prepared to ensure that the process is transparent. You just need to perform your own part of the bargain, which is showing up to vote at this election. A situation where a minority are determining who governs the majority is totally unacceptable. And there are people of Anambra, very enterprising people, and we continue to urge them to show up in their large numbers to prove the naysayers that Anambra people don't participate in elections or they don't believe in democracy. You have an opportunity to do that. INEC has assured that materials will be available. So just perform your own bit. But if we look at the data and as well as the interactions with voters, honestly, we may not record more than 20%. But we just hope that voters will heed this call. But you know, the politicians also need to be held accountable for this. And it's a question of how have they governed in such a way that it encourages people to show up to cast their vote. It's also on the institutions involved. And to what extent do voters feel secured that when they show up, their lives will not be threatened either by thugs or by cultists? Because in the build-up to this election, we've seen a high prevalence rate, of kidnappings, of cult activities, to the extent that you have even vigilante groups that have been recruited either by political elements to intimidate people. And the security agencies have said unequivocally that vigilantes will not be part of the security architecture, for this election. And we hope that they really enforce that so that voters can feel secure to cast their vote. And our call, to the people of Anambra is to come out, go to your respective polling units, cast your vote, if possible, remain there until the votes and the ballots are counted, and keep oversight. Because if this election is successful, it's not successful because of INEC and all the security agencies. It's successful because you as a voter, you're performing your own statutory responsibility because you are an indigene of this state, as well as a citizen of Nigeria, which is a constitutional democracy.
Yeah, I just finished speaking just before I started speaking with you with one of the candidates who will be on the ballot on Saturday. And my last question was very deliberate, which is what I want to ask you. In terms of the perception, if you've spoken with any of the candidates or if you watch their body language or seen how they carry out their activities in terms of campaigns to this moment, do you feel that the candidate, because that's one conversation sometimes we perhaps miss out, that plays out in how we see outcomes. Do you think that the candidate themselves are confident that the process will be free, fair, credible?
I think it's a mixed bag. It's a mixed bag. There are some candidates who believe and trust the process. There are some who don't. And you cannot blame people for the views that they hold. And this is why the new INEC chairman has reiterated the point that this is a litmus test. They will do everything possible to restore public trust and confidence, in the voters. And I hope that we will see that play out because there is an integrity test, definitely. And it's about how the results will be managed, the collation process, to what extent it's transparent. If accredited observers and accredited party agents are not allowed into ward collation centers, then don't expect candidates to trust the process. But INEC has assured that every accredited voter, every accredited ward collation or local government collation center agent will be granted access. So let's give the commission the benefit of doubt. But I urge that for the candidates who don't have trust, sitting back is not going to help. You have to deploy your trained party agents so that they don't go to the polling units on election day and start compromising. Because one of the things that we see on election day is sometimes you're very confused whether these party agents are party agents of candidates. Some of them show up and they have different tags for different political parties. And you see them actually marketing their services and they are willing to be bought over by another political party. And so candidates also need to provide some level of oversight. It's not just about saying you don't trust the process. The question is, what are you doing to keep watch over the process, to complement what media organizations are doing, what civil society organizations are doing, as well as what citizens are doing?
Yes, let's begin to Costom. And you mentioned something. I think it was Yaga also that raised that concern during the election, denial of access to some of the collation centers. I think it was the World Collection Center also. But I know also that...
and the local government, yeah.
Yes, I remember. Yes, I think I was correct on that. But let's talk about what Yaga and the civil society organizations will look at as the three big tests to say, if you cross these tests, in this election, where INEC especially, then I think we're making progress. What would they be?
I think the first test is the efficiency test, and it's whether election materials and election personnel will be deployed to at least 80 to 90% of polling units on election day, because by INEC guidelines, election officials should arrive at 7:30, but accreditation and voting should start at 8:30. If in 80% of polling units, accreditation and voting starts at 8:30, I think it's a big win. I know it's a tough one, but I think it's achievable.
My sincere apologies, Mr. Itodo, if you can hear me, my apologies. I need to go for this quick break. When I come back, I'll take your thoughts in quick succession. My apologies.
All right.
We'll be back in just a moment. Thanks for staying with us. Just before wrap up, let's get the final thoughts of Mr. Itodo. Mr. Itodo, thank you so much for your understanding. So if you can quickly run through that three-way test in just about 1 or 2 minutes, we appreciate it.
Thank you very much. So there are three big tests underpinning the Anambra elections. The first one is the efficiency test. And the big question is whether INEC will break the jinx of logistical challenge that leads to late opening of polls, as we've seen in multiple cycles of elections. The second test is the impartiality test. Will the security agencies uphold neutrality despite concerns of either federal might to influence the election? And the third, and perhaps also another critical test, is the integrity test. And this one really relates to how INEC will ensure full compliance with accreditation with the BVAS. No BVAS, no accreditation. But also whether the polling unit level results will be uploaded on the IREV. These are critical issues, and INEC has assured stakeholders that polling unit level results will be transmitted or uploaded on INEC's election results review portal. So we are all expectant. These are the three tests: the efficiency test, the impartiality test, and the integrity test. If they pass all these tests, then we can say with a high degree of confidence that this election has passed the integrity test, or perhaps the integrity quotient of this election is higher than previous elections that we've seen. And that's really the scenario and where we want to be by Saturday or Sunday or Monday, whenever this process is concluded.
Well, thank you so much, Samson Itodo, Executive Director, Yaga Africa, for coming through and giving us your expertise as well as what we should be expecting on Saturday. Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks. Always a delight. Have a good night.
All right. That's it on the program. All eyes on Anambra just 48 hours away from now. I'm Jeffrey Uzongo. Bye-bye.